Hello, beautiful people. It's your girl Nasa. Today I'm going to be talking about grooming. When I released my last song for week number 34, I said that, maybe we could have a conversation about this because the song that I wrote called Predator, it is inspired by, um, you know, it's inspired by the time where I had someone much older talking to me when I was just a 14-year-old, a baby, you know? And so yeah, no one asked me to talk about this. This is just something I'm deciding to do because I feel like it is part of it's part of my purpose to shed light on some of these things. The reason why I started thinking about this particular topic more is because um, I used to make this joke with my boyfriend that I was my hottest when I was 13 because that's when I got the most attention from men. And I thought it was like a weight thing, like because when I was 14, I weighed like 140 pounds, and yeah, so I assumed that it's because I was skinnier. That's why I got all the attention. But after a bit of time of my boyfriend hearing this joke, he was like, so that's fucked up, right? Like that's that's sick. Like a 13-year-old can't be hot. That's And he was saying that the men that made me believe that I was so hot at 13 weren't good men. And so yeah, that just got me thinking more about like the whole predators. So I mostly wanted to talk about a particular situation. I don't want to get too much into the details because then it just gets messy and confusing. But yeah, pretty much this happened when I was 14, and I went to Haiti just to visit. I was there for like 25 days. And in one of those times, I was attending a vacation Bible school that my aunt led. Um, as part of her ministry, and her husband ministry was working with like reformed just reformed men, like young men that used to be gangsters, used to be graffiti artists that were pretty much rebellious and lost in the world, that want to change their lives and become pastors. So they were, that was his ministry. And one of the guys that was at that center, he was the one that started to talk to me. When he started to talk to me, he already knew that I was 14 because, that was like one of the first questions he asked me. And, he was shocked to know that I was 14 because apparently I looked older, which I understand to a certain degree because when I went to Haiti, I saw the kids my age and I was all like, why do they look so young? But that's because of the hormones that I must have consumed growing up. I went through puberty faster or whatever, or I just looked older than the other kids, but also not that much older. I actually ended up asking a girl who I thought was my age. I thought she was 14 like me, and no, she said she was 16, and she said, "You look 16." So here I am in Haiti looking 16. Besides that, even though he knew that I was 14, not 16 or 17 or however old he thought he was, he still knew that I was 14 and he didn't stop talking to me. He still kept pursuing me. He would just pop up here and there while I was in the camp hanging out with my new friend. And yeah, he would ask me questions. We'd talk. He would tell me that he's interested in me. He got me to get on Facebook and friend him. And really, I knew that he was a bit older, but I also thought that he was like 16 at most. Like I knew he was older, but I assumed that he was 16 because why else would he talk to me? While that was what I believed, the situation, it was kind of cute because he was this guy giving me all this attention and telling me he's interested and asking me all these questions, and it felt so sweet and like felt like it was like in a respectful manner. And also he was Christian, and so I thought, this is like maybe it's my time, to like have a relationship. So I did start to like this guy, and not only did he have the chance to talk to me at Vacation Bible School, but he also had the chance to talk to me at what's it called? At the at the center that he was living in with the other men because yeah, that's just what we did. Like right after Vacation Bible School, I went with my aunt to go to the center that her husband worked at, and we had like a worship service there, and yeah, it was chill. And then afterwards, we went to the play yard or whatever. Yeah, and I just watched him play basketball, and he'd in between breaks, he just like chat with me and um, yeah, give me all this attention. And it wasn't until like maybe the third day that I realized that, oh, he's probably older than 16, and that's because he was actually the person driving the vehicle that took everyone from the VBS to the center. And so that's when I was all like, oh, I'm pretty sure in Haiti you need to be like at least 18 to drive, which actually isn't true. You need to be 16, but regardless, I thought, I was like, okay, he's probably 18. That still felt kind of weird to me, but I still justified it because um, my parents also have a 4 year age gap. You know, my mom was 15 when she started dating my dad that was 19, and you know, I thought, okay, I'm gonna have like a little love story kind of like my parents. But that was not the case. Because it was not a 4 year age gap, it was a 9 year age gap, which is very different. And also, it's not 1985 anymore, it's 2012. So I'm pretty sure in that time, you know, there must have been some changes where people were just all like, yeah, maybe don't date minors. Even though in Haiti the laws around that are kind of loose, you know, it's just it to me it seemed like it was something that was like kind of normal or must have been kind of normal. um but regardless if it's normal or not, like in this land, like it's still weird and predatory. So when I thought he was 18, I was a bit weary, but like also like more open in the sense because I still liked him. I still wanted to hang out with him. I still liked the attention he was giving me. You know, he'd make me balloon animals, and while I'd be watching him play basketball, he brought me his iPod, and I just like listened to his playlist while, you know, it was cool. Not cool, but like it seemed, you know, sweet. But there were some red flags. In fact, there were many. So there was this one thing that he felt like he should tell me, you know, warn me about. And he would say that one thing that he struggles with is jealousy, and that he, you know, he's a very jealous person. Um, and I got to see that, which made me very uncomfortable. Like I don't know, like it seemed to get a bit worse over time. I did notice that when one of the guys from the center would talk to me, which they were also predators, you know, trying to get to know me and all that stuff. Yeah, he would be like from where he was, and he'd just watch me, and like he looked so angry. Um, and then, you know, later when he got his alone time with me, he'd be like, you know, it makes me really jealous when you know these guys talk to you. And it was like kind of it was a very uncomfortable situation, and it made me feel very uncomfortable. And like eventually it turned into fear. Like I feared him finding me talk to anybody. Which was weird because there's this one time where I was in Vacation Bible School. I guess it was like kind of like an open house or whatever, and there were like more people there. When I got cornered by this one dude that was like wouldn't leave me alone, and like practically being very, I don't know, like he cornered me, like, and there was no one around, and I was like really scared. But I wasn't scared because I was thinking, here's this guy not leaving me alone, I feel unsafe around him. It was, oh my gosh, what if this guy, I have to give him a name, Lorax. Okay, yeah, so I was thinking like, oh my gosh, what if Lorax sees me talking to this guy? He's gonna get really jealous and mad at me. And so, yeah, there was that. And this other time when I was talking to one of the guys in the center, which I don't think he was a predator at all. Like he wasn't necessarily trying to get to know me. He was really interested in learning English, and he wanted some help. He had like this dictionary in his hand, and he would like ask me like, what does this mean, how do I pronounce this? And you know, he was like really excited about learning English, and he tried to practice with me. And he was the one that was like a former graffiti artist. Anyways, like yeah, he really wanted to learn English and he wanted my help. And so there was this one time where he was just like, asking me for help. And the conversation was, I guess it was going too long or whatever, because Lorax, he kept coming in the room like every 10 minutes and like asking me for high fives and being like, hey, what's up? Like, and now I'm like, I'm good. And then he'd leave and then he'd come back, he'd be like, high five. And he just like eye the dude or whatever. And I was like, this is weird, okay? There seemed to be like a problem with control over there. Things especially did take a turn when we told each other we liked each other. Um, ugh, and so things did start to get like a bit more personal, and it wasn't just like him, checking up on me and talking or whatever. And now it was like more personal questions. Like one thing he asked me is that if I was a virgin, and that was a red flag. Yeah, and when I said I was, it was like he was like, wow, like as if he hit the jackpot or whatever. Like he was, I don't know. So besides him being a super jealous person, the other red flag event was when I actually found out how old he was. It was like, for whatever reason, he was showing me his passport photo, and he was talking about how he eventually wants to go to America, which I'll touch on that later. Yeah, so he was showing me that he got his passport photo done, and then like he eventually showed me his ID, and I looked at it and I was all like, I didn't do the math, but he was like, do you know how old I am? And I was like, no. And then he's like, I'm 23. And I was like, oh, okay. And that's when I was all like, ah, what is happening? That's when I was really confused, because at this point we already told each other we liked each other, and um now I know he's 23. Now I know it's not just a 4-year age gap, it's a whole 9-year age gap. And it's not something that I ever felt like would be a part of my life. I never thought that I would be talking to a 23-year-old, because that's a pretty big difference. Yeah, so it definitely made me very confused. I was thinking like, why is this happening? Why am I talking to someone so much older? Like, this doesn't seem like something that's okay. But I still feel like I like him and I like the attention he gives me. And he didn't make me feel like I was a child. I just felt like, this was just a natural relationship happening. And, it was the first bit of romance that I really got. But then the next day, that's when things got a little more confusing. He was telling me that he had this vision that showed him that I was the one for him, and that he felt like God put me in his life so that we could be together and all that stuff. And then he wanted to introduce me to his brother, another guy from the center. And he wasn't like his actual brother, but he called him his brother. Yeah, and he introduced me to him as his girlfriend. And I'm thinking like internally and internally I'm just like, what? I'm his girlfriend? How did that happen? That was quick. I'm his girlfriend? Oh my god. Yeah, and so that's when I kind of felt a bit trapped, because it was just weird. Like, it wasn't something I felt like was natural. I've been talking to someone who I thought was 16 for 5 days, and suddenly I'm the girlfriend of a 23-year-old. Yeah, and so that was very, very confusing. And I was like thinking, okay, he said that, God put us together or whatever. And I'm thinking like, God, is that really you? Is this supposed to be happening? Is this our love story? Like is age really just a number in this situation, or is this weird? But eventually, once I left the country and there was more distance between us, I was able to think of things more objectively and like question things more in a more just questioning things better. I went on Yahoo Answers, of course, because what else can I do? And so I I would just type up like, is age nothing but a number? And I would like read all these people's different opinions, and they pretty much would say that age is nothing but a number after a certain age point. Like, you know, after you're like 25, then sure, age is nothing but a number. But you know, when you're 16, it's kind of, it's a much bigger deal, and it is predatory. And then I read the story of a specific girl who, I don't think she got any answers on her question, but she pretty much had like a similar situation to me, where she had this boyfriend that was much older than her in another country, and she was questioning if he was only interested in keeping her around because of like visa and like possibly getting a better chance to go to America. And then that's when I started thinking, like, is that what's happening? Because I had already started like my whole fantasy thing where I was all like, oh yeah, when I'm 16, you know, he'll come here and visit me, and we'll like go to the mall or whatever and have fun. And then eventually when I'm older, we'll get married and we'll be happy together and all that stuff. So I already went through that little phase, and then I read this girl's story where it was pretty much like, you know, I feel like he might be using me. And so I read that, and that's when I was all like, yeah, maybe this isn't right. But throughout this whole time, like, I don't actually know, I'm not actually sure of the time frame. I think it was like 3 weeks at most. But yeah, we were talking, we would message each other on Facebook, and eventually I just felt uncomfortable, and I was all like, yeah, I don't want to message him anymore. And yeah, so I stopped messaging him, but then his brother started to message me, and be like, you know, why'd you stop messaging him? And then it was weird. And so yeah, I deleted my Facebook account, and I just like left the whole situation because I was just like, I don't want any part of this anymore. This is weird. I don't think it's right. And yeah, I don't think my parents would be okay with this. So I did look back into him like a few years later, and you know, now the guy, he's married with someone who I believe is age appropriate. Um, yeah, and he's got a kid. So I don't have any comment. I don't know if he's still a predator. I don't know. But he certainly did not make the right decision when he decided that he was going to keep talking to me and, I don't know, make me his girlfriend or whatever. That was hella weird. But in general, like when I was like 13 and 14, that's when I got the most approached. And I feel like that is really weird, really strange. I'm 23 now, and the thought of like, yeah, it's disgusting. It's gross. I don't know how anyone can do that. But yeah, I remember being 13, and like even after these guys would ask me how old I am, and I told them I was 13, which is a thing that I'm glad I did, because I know other girls my age, they liked the attention a lot, and they'd be like old enough, or they'd say that they're 16 when they're really 14 or whatever. Like they would just lie about their age. And that gave these predators a chance to claim innocence, you know, because when they get caught, they could be like, she didn't tell me she was 15. You know, like she told me she was 18. She told me she was 19. But me, I never lied. I always I always told them because I didn't feel like, I don't know, why would I lie? I'm not really interested in you. Yeah, but even when I did tell a lot of them that I was 13, they would still try to talk to me. They would still ask me for my number, which I didn't have one at the time. They would still ask me for Facebook, which I also didn't have. Yeah, and that's not something that happens to me now. Like, it's not like when it comes to like being hit on as an adult, like it's not something where I'm just at a Walmart or at Burlington Coat Factory and someone's walking up to me and asking me for my number. Like that's what predators do. But no, like now that I'm a woman, it's like I only get hit on in appropriate settings, you know, when I'm at the bar or the club or whatever. And, you know, obviously in that kind of environment where that's just the status quo. But no, like I don't get catcalled anymore. It just doesn't happen. Not at all like it used to when I was a child, which is so weird, so gross. Like why? Going back on Lorax, like luckily I was able to leave that situation. You know, not everyone can leave the country and just not have to deal with that person ever again. And luckily, I was in an environment where there were so many eyes on me that he really couldn't do much but talk to me. I mean, the most we did was like, you know, hug goodbye and hold hands. But, you know, he did express to me that he wanted to kiss me, but there are too many people watching. And he mentioned that my aunt, you know, she said, I don't know what happened between him and my aunt, but he was all like, you know, your aunt's a very jealous woman. And she doesn't like that I talk to you or whatever, which I don't know. I don't know. So what pushed me to speak on this stuff is because I've read a lot of comments of, you know, other women expressing that the same thing happened to them. Not only, you know, when they were young, that they were like approached by, you know, by a lot of men, and they felt like, I don't know, that they were just magnets, you know, when they were 13 and 14, like just young little girls. They were really preyed on. And it wasn't until later that they realized how weird that was. And like even like women who are experiencing it now, you know, who are very petite. I read multiple comments where, you know, women would say that I'm 5 feet tall, I'm 4'11", and I weigh 100 pounds. And whenever men ask me how old I am and they learn that I'm 28, they're so disappointed. I'm like, what? Like, so these aren't situations where they just liked this person because they looked young or whatever. It was because they actually wanted her to be young. They wanted her to be a minor. And so that's off. I want to talk more about this stuff. I actually have a lot more stories. And yeah, that's all, beautiful people. So that is all, beautiful people. Thank you so much for watching. I know this video was kind of messy, and you know, I really hope that, you know, it's received well. Thank you so much, beautiful people. I send you my love. Mwah.